So I've developed past the previous version of the book that I showed. So this is the old one, which was the draft with my drawings and things in it. And we've got the printed version. It's not final at all, it's just scrap, but it's good for working in an annotation and being able to see things properly. So I got the whole thing printed out. It's still on brown paper because I'm quite enjoying that sort of aesthetic to it. I don't know, it just makes it feel a bit like sort of found ephemera, which I'm enjoying. I think it looks quite well. Oh, bird going over. So as you can see, this has developed quite a lot from the previous edition because it's the actual monoprints that I did now and not the very loosely detailed drawings of the same things. This one doesn't include the cut-throughs because I started assembling it really quickly and forgot to do it, and then just went straight into the sewing and trimming all the pages, which meant that I didn't have access to the pockets anymore. So next version is going to have the actual cut-throughs in it again. But I did I've done annotation in here because I sort of know little things that I want to change at the moment. So the contrast here, my nails are actually a similar colour to what I want the colour of this box to be, which is quite funny. And then this is just like bits of annotation about opacity and where the page needs to be set for trimming and things. So I've gone through and I've added placeholders for text. I do have sort of a general idea of the type of text that will be going in here. It's sort of a mix between personal written monologues and then the annotation from my essay, which I'm either going to use, I think I'm either going to use 2 different fonts, or it might be interesting to keep the mirrored text sort of thing that I had going with some of the older monoprints, because I do enjoy that idea of inaccessible text. So anyway, so first book, Abyss. So the first page is the dancers and the candle, and then we've got this one I call The Murder. I have actually already edited this to sort of add some contrast, because I do find that with the monoprints it does get a bit repetitive. Like there's a good quality to them when they're very loosely defined, but also when you lose too much detail, your eyes kind of start to glaze over and it doesn't feel as good an experience for a book. So I've got The Murder, we've got The Ghosts in the Jar. So this is just my annotation about editing the page, so to move left and add the seam allowance to it, and also lighten aspects of this so that it doesn't all sort of blend together, so that these little panels have a little bit more contrast to them. And it keeps going. I'm not sure about the dark page. I was enjoying it when I put this version together, but in the current edited version it goes back to the regular black and white. But then also I really like the texture of this printed on the brown paper, so, and I suppose it provides a bit more contrast to the page. So I'm not sure on that, I'll come back to it. But as you can see, this one has predefined sort of text boxes on it. This needed to be shifted up because the bottom one's been trimmed off, things like that, as I go through. And then the first of, well, the third of the mirror illustrations, but so this one was trimmed badly, so I need to sort of shift everything down again so that it blends better, but I'm enjoying it. I think it's working somewhat well here. So that's the first book. And then Realities. Unfortunately, I did make a mistake with the binding on this one, so it's that first section is really tight, so I need to sort of have a look at what I'm doing again. This one is one of the pages that needs quite a bit more editing, so these sort of indicate what would have been cut throughs because they're mirrors, and then the original monoprint on this one, which you can't see very well because of the sun, didn't print very well at all, so I've had to do some digital editing on this so that it actually shows up, and then you can see I've got the placeholders text again. This one I really like because the middle section is a lot more comic focus, as I talked about in the last video, and it's got these panels that when I made the monoprint they were all sort of together on all sort of squished together, and being able to sort of pull those apart and have them be in different places on the page is interesting. I think they work well as overlays for a background image. So this page in my final, I think, is going to be a cut through, and this will be moved over here so that when it's cut out, it won't just be free floating, and they sort of all edge around as this frame to other events that are going on, because I ended up missing out a couple of monoprints that I did quite like and felt appropriate to the project, because I was working against that sort of selective space that you're forced to use when you're making a book. So it's like, I mean, there's checks and balances to it, because it meant that I cut out a lot of unnecessary stuff, but I have lost a couple that I quite enjoyed previously, so I'm gonna try and reincorporate those. This page I really enjoy. It has an overlay, which you can't see very well because I've drawn on the tracing paper that is printed on, but I have this tracing paper overlay with a really creepy monoprint on it that I quite enjoyed. And I also accidentally left the overlay layer on the initial layer that I was working on when I was printing the book. So this won't be here in the final version, it'll only be on the tracing paper, this overlay panel, but yeah. I quite like the tracing paper though. I feel like it sort of adds a nice bit of distance, and it's a good reference to Charlotte Salamon's work, I think. Because I mentioned that in my essay that she worked with overlays for quite a while before her work started to transition into embedding text into the image, and yeah, it feels like an interesting step on the process. And on the other side we have this sort of another comic-y type one, which shows where the cutouts will be as well. This is sort of a motif for me, the eyes thing. This has shown up in a couple of previous projects. So in second year I did a comics project based on Otessa Moshfe's My Year of Rest and Relaxation, which was an A4 comic page, and that had that same sort of series of eyes, so that kind of feels like a motif for me at this point. And we've got these guys with the space for text as well. More notes about my seam allowance and trimming. And then this, unfortunately, I really love this monoprint, but when it printed, it all up here just lost the detail. And then you can see here that I've got a slightly different text allowance, where I think that would be more... My idea was that this would be more of the essay annotation, whereas the text boxes would be my own writing, but I'm not entirely sure about that. I'm thinking about loosening that distinction and giving the whole thing a bit more movement to it. And then we've got this blank page, which would have a line of text in the start of the next section. So Dream, which is my final section. All of these in my final are going to have the quote that the name is taken from, because each of them is taken from a quote from my essay that I either referenced or was something that I said myself. So this one is taken in reference to With Dream Awakened Eyes, which is a quote from the start of Charlotte Salomon's Singspiel, which felt really appropriate. This sort of final section is a bit more about... It's all become very reflective of the artist's journey, which feels quite appropriate for a research document, because you can sort of see these distinct sections where my project took like another twist, and I was able to reapproach and embrace things that I was doing before and sort of make them work with a slightly changed brief. So we've got this spread, which is quite sort of more explicitly dreamy. These monoprints were actually from the very start of the project, before I sort of did more research and got where I wanted to be going. So this was when originally these were red, and they're from when the project was a bit more gothic inspired, and I was working with poems and some songs and things, and none of those really produced too much interesting imagery for me. I felt like I got a lot of quite repetitive imagery, but these two I quite enjoyed and felt like they were fitting with the theme of this page, so I decided to include them. And then we've got this page that I really love, which was actually just a sketch I did before I came home, and then I actually created another monoprint to fit in with the rest of the series for the gathering, just because it felt like I was missing something and I really needed this spread page with these sort of connected entities of myself, which I really like. And then more inserts of text and things, and I've not creased this page properly, but sort of text there, and some ideas for what I want to be happening over here, like more definition on the hands of the monoprint, because this has been an issue. In some of the lines are so delicate in the original monoprints that when you print them, they just barely come through. It's like a pencil line. Like, I mean, you can sort of see it in person, but not as well as I would have hoped. So that's I say the second edition, but it isn't actually the second edition. I think it's the 11th edition of the book if I include every practice scene that I've done. So the stitching is a bit more spaced out, and this one's got actual bookboard covers instead of just this flimsy cardboard, but you can sort of see the difference there. I'm not quite sure on the stitching because I looked into it, and in the book I'm referencing it does say it's Coptic stitching, and then I looked up Coptic stitching and it's slightly different, so I don't know if I've managed to read the instructions wrong and produce an entirely new type of stitch, which I mean to a degree feels relevant, so I'll take it, I suppose. But this one's a little bit messier. I messed up a couple times on this one, and because it was more spaced out, it was difficult to compare to this original one, which I felt went a lot neater, you know, when you hold them up next to each other. But it worked. I did make some mistakes with the sewing here, because as you can see, this bit of inside sewing pins this entire section, not just the page, to the cover, which sort of makes it difficult to open this without creasing it. But yeah, I'm enjoying it so far. I think my final version is going to have some more detail on the cover. I want this to feel really lovingly crafted, I think is important, so it will have a lot more detail on it through printing and me drawing into it a bit. But yeah, I've got tons of these, so this one's the most recent, this is the last one I showed in a video, and then I've just got one that was my test at home for properly printing these on my crappy home printer instead of a university one. These so I could work out where all the pages were in the final document and where all the cut throughs could be and things like that. This one that I showed Matt at university, which was really the first time that I printed any of these on brown paper, and it was with the university printers, and it's really nice. It's this little blank hot dog book with just the actual original sort of ink stains from the monoprint. But something about it just being this little blank book is nice. I mean, it's not appropriate for a research document, but something's quite nice about that. Layout book. And I've got another couple ones that I made in a tutorial for bookbinding, which were just trying out different stitching methods. So these are blank on the inside, but that's Japanese stab stitch, and I think this one's running stitch, I don't remember, but it's got this sort of leafed cover to it, and a few more pages in it. But yeah, I'm enjoying working with the hot dog book structure. I think it feels more appropriate to have that, because I'm not sacrificing page space when I want to put in inserts and things, because it's sort of built into the structure of it. And having this more simple concept that develops into something a bit more complicated as you put more physical work into it feels reflective of the process. So yeah, so back to these guys, but yeah, I'm really happy with it so far. I'm just going to put these on a little YouTube playlist link or something and link them on my slides, but yeah, I'm really happy with it.